feel like it's a big party. This is really going to be fun for the family and for Lynn and for everybody involved. So, my name is Catherine Watts-Martinez. I work in the ACC photography department. I'm one of the dinosaurs that have been there forever. They're going on 28 years now. I was this big when I started. And what I'm going to do is turn it over for Barbara, his wife, to speak, and I will have something to say with some of the people from the program. The son-in-law will get up and speak, and then we'll open the floor for people to kind of come up and say what they would like to say. I'm not really good at this whole karaoke kind of machine thing, so we will turn it over to Barbara's son, Teddy.
Hey everybody, thank you all for coming. One thing, for those of y'all that, I imagine everybody here knew Lynn pretty well if you're here, so we really appreciate it. This is what Lynn wanted. He would want it out in a setting like this, and I was just telling Carlos a minute ago, I said, the problem with Lynn though is he'd be over like taking pictures of the rocks and stuff. We're like a cobbler's family with no shoes. There's hardly any family pictures. Lynn was like, that's why people get paid to do that stuff. Nobody does that for fun. Lynn did not like funerals the way Americans typically do funerals. They're very solemn and sorrowful. Lynn had 81 and a half really good years. And he was very fortunate, and I think, Becky and Mother and everybody would say, he was fortunate that he literally did what he loved doing right up until the time that, that he passed away. So what we would like to ask everybody to do is, please focus on the 81 and a half really good years. He didn't want to be remembered dying. He wanted to be remembered living and photographing and happy and smiling and enjoying himself. That's what we want to focus on today is his life and the celebration of it and just all the great memories that we have about Lynn. And thank God he was very fortunate that he didn't linger long and he passed on innocently and it was a pleasant as experiences I think it can be. The great thing about Lynn is, one, he lived 81 and a half years, and two, he was known to talk a little bit, so there will probably be some pretty good stories that we'll hear about Lynn. And the last thing I'd say is, I know my sons are here, and his other grandsons are here, and he's one of the few families that didn't have granddaughters. One of his grandsons is actually in the military right now, so he can't be here. But we're going to video it. I would go with Lynn on some of his classes and would see how he taught and share with his students. And I got to see that part of him. Unfortunately, my kids did not. And most of his grandsons did not get to see that part of Lynn as a co-worker, as a professor, as a friend. And so one of the things, sharing the stories today is they'll be able to take that away because they just unfortunately were not old enough to have shared that with Lynn. So, we encourage y'all to please share those stories. Not only will, I think, the people here enjoy it, but I know the people like his grandsons that did not get a chance to be able to share that with him, that they'll enjoy it greatly as well.
I have about 5 minutes of things I would like to share with you about Lynn that most people don't really know. So give me a second. I promise it's not a political speech. John Lennon said, life is what happens when we're making plans. And I know I just retired, and I thought that was really when I would get to do things. And fate doesn't always work that way, so it really is what happens when we're making plans. Another famous author wrote, life is a banquet and most poor suckers are starving to death. Lynn never starved. He lived in the moment. It took him years to let go of his childhood and his past. He was in his 70s before a therapist helped him to overcome the pain of his childhood. as we all know, he could spin a tale. And in his opinion, if what he envisioned wasn't the truth, it should. So bear with me while I give you a little bit of an insight to what made him the way he was. The time is the first of the Great Depression when he was born. His 19-year-old mother married to get away from a stepmother, whatever. She married a man she hardly knew who was 20 years older than she, who turned out to be a member of a crime syndicate in the city of Chicago. His earliest memories are before he was 3 years old, of seeing his father beat up his mother and his brother and him. His happiest memories when he was little was he had a great voice, which he always did, and he sang in 2 or 3 churches on Sunday morning. They kind of borrowed. After having 3 boys, his mother finally managed, which was hard in the 30s, to divorce his father. And before she remarried, Lynn was just 7, and he knew what was happening, but he didn't really understand. His mother kept one of the 3 boys who was sickly, Robert. Her sister kept the newborn and never gave him back. They fell in love with him. And Lynn was given away to a Methodist Episcopal priest who was very strict and demanded obedience to everything. So he was very traumatized. A month later, his mom come back and get him, but the damage was done. He was so used to rejection that he always expected it. I don't know if you knew that or not, but he did. So if he seemed to live in his own little world, that was fine. He made his own little world. His mother, very luckily, remarried a career sailor, a gentleman and a scholar, and his name was Jones. So Lynn Moore changed his name and became the crazy person we know. He lived in Houston since 1947 and joined the Navy from that city. He loves to be on the cutting edge of action. So the proudest thing he ever owned is that pathetic-looking corpsman jacket hanging over there in the little gazebo. It was his most valued treasure. And if you look at the sleeve of it carefully, you will see that the military at that time did not stamp your rank onto the sleeve. So he took a ballpoint pen and drew it. Even though he was qualified when he left the Navy to be a nurse, he chose to go to Brooks Institute of Photography and become a photographer. When he was in the Navy, he invented a rack that hung above the operating tables for the photographers to lie on when they photographed surgery. On our first dates, I remember my daughter walking into the studio one time, and Lynn and I were lying on the floor looking at slides, and she said, "What are those?" And Lynn said, "Kidneys, cancer." At 59, he became the department head of photography at ACC, and it changed his life forever. He loved that job, did not want to admit he could not go back to the last day. He was working 1 month before he passed away, full time. And he was trying to convince us he could get the hover round through the hall and into his office. And we said, first you have to be awake, you know? Okay. One of the great awards he won was the NISARD Award for Teaching Excellence, awarded by the University of Texas. But to get this award, you have to be nominated by your fellow faculty. And that was an honor. Brooks Institute asked him to speak at their commencement exercise and gave him an honorary master's degree for his accomplishments. When I first met him, you know, Lynn, sometimes you wondered if what he was saying was really true or not. So on the first date, I thought, well, we'll find out. And I thought, who are the two most obscure people I can think of to try to ask him about? And I thought, okay, hey, have you ever heard of Edward Albee and Henry Gibson? I had a degree in drama. I knew these guys. 15 minutes later, he finally showed up. And I said, I learned things from listening to him, and I said, hey, if you didn't have a degree in drama, how do you know these things? And very sarcastically he said, some of us read. After we married, he had a heart attack, a stroke, Legionnaire's pneumonia twice, 5 bouts with cancer, and never stopped teaching full-time, evenings, overtime. He's one of the bravest, strongest people I have ever known, and one of the most accepting. However, that didn't go for politics. He said that Travis County was the only place in Texas he was safe. Now, what I would like you to do today is try to remember some of the things you could share with us, because we didn't see what most of you saw. And I encourage you to do that. We really have been looking forward to hearing your comments. Thank you.
All right, I think the best way to do this actually is I'll wait to the end to say what I need to say, and open it up to people that would like to come up and have funny stories or memories of how they met Lynn, and that sort of thing. So I'm really just going to kind of invite people to come on up. There is a sign-up sheet, but I think we'll just kind of ask people, see that someone else is finishing, come on up and share your stories. So we have our first contestant.
I'm as bashful as Lynn. My name is Richard Cutler. I'm in the radio TV film department out at Northridge. My memory of Lynn came from a very, very brief moment. I met him one day at Simon's Cafe several years ago, and we were sort of drawn to each other because of his loquaciousness and his gregariousness, and everyone within the sound of his voice in Simon's Cafe was sort of focused on him. And I don't remember the tale he was spinning, but we immediately started talking, especially when we found out that I had something to do with radio. We had voices to share. He was someone who I would say deserved to hear the sound of his own voice. You know, I accused of professors of that, but I think he really deserved that. And we immediately just started talking about everything imaginable. And then he said he had to scuttle off, and he went off to his office. The next thing I knew, in my inbox was a script that he had written. And it was about his time when he was in the Navy using Copenhagen. And so I've held on to that, and I've treasured it because it's a wonderful metaphor for the road not taken. And I'll leave you with that. Thank you for that chance.
I'm Steve Witcher, and I'm a student out at ACC. And Lynn, of course, like you said, can talk forever. One of my favorite instances is when we were talking about different photographers, and he was asking who I had seen and what I thought, and I mentioned Annie Leibovitz. And his eyes rolled back in his head. And so I looked at him and I said, well, I really like her work. And he's like, well, she does really good work, and his eyes rolled again. So I very calmly said, so she's a bitch like Martha Stewart. And he's like, what? I'm like, well, I've met Martha, and trust me, every story you've ever heard is probably nicer than she is. And he's like, well, yes, that means they're probably sisters. And so, and then also when I was in his class and had to drop it before taking it again, the history class, because I found out my mother had stage 4 cancer and I was trying to deal with that. Mom's fine, so don't anybody get upset. She's in remission right now. But when I went to Lynn to talk to him about it, he told me about his fight with cancer. And so he said, never give up. Don't listen to what the doctor said, because she's probably going to be here for years. And he was actually the only person that could get me to finally calm down. So so I could deal with the issue and be there for my mom instead of freaking out every time I talk to her. And I'm sure he is up there having a cocktail with Ansel Adams and several of the others, looking down at us and laughing, saying, but y'all have to keep working. I know.
I saw a break. I'm going to take it. I'm Doug Box. I'm the Executive Director of the Texas Professional Photographers Association. And Lynn and Catherine came to me a number of years ago and said, you know, we need to work together with ACC and the Texas Professional Photographers Association and require that the students become a member, attend Kerrville, and enter prints. And I said, great, I'll take all the members I can get. Even if it's only for a year or two, I'll take them. And I wasn't sure what was going to happen. And so the students started entering prints, and they started kicking the butts of the old photographers. So we came up with your own trophy, so that we don't have to compete with you anymore. So I think you talk to a lot of people, and this has been great for me because Lynn and I used to sit around and talk all the time about things. But when you see somebody, and you see the people around them, you see those students, and y'all respected him, and he respected you. That's how you know about a man. He was a great man, and I'm glad I got to know him.
Well, I actually have a funny story. So I think I was about 15 when my mother met Lynn, and I ended up going to school down here at the University of Texas. And to talk about kind of the irony of fate, you know, Lynn is this liberal, democratic photographer, and I'm this libertarian accountant, right? And so I'm up here at the University of Texas, and I'm in the accounting program up here, and anyway, I have to take this liberal arts class, which I'm not real happy about. And so I'm trying to find what class will fit in this time slot. And literally, like 95% of my classes were over in the Macomb School of Business up here at UT. And I find this one class that will fit. And I don't even really look it up in the catalog. I'm literally scrolling and I see that, oh, it's on this day at this time, or, you know, Tuesday, Thursday at the right time. So I pick it. And so it ends up being a graduate philosophy class. And the class is called The History of Immanuel Kant. And so I go into class. First of all, it's a very interesting walk over. I did not even know the University of Texas had these buildings. And it was a very interesting walk over there. And you could see, like, I left people with suits and dockers, and then I ran into people with t-shirts and shorts, and then there was, like, street people. And that's where the liberal arts building was. And I was almost afraid to ask for directions of where this building was. I finally find it, and it's one of the older buildings on campus. And I'll never forget, I went into the class, and I'm used to classes, they limited our accounting classes to 75 people, because we were in a graduate program as well. And they were, you know, if they could have put 76 in there, they would have, you know. And so I walk into this class, and I'm literally one of 7 students. And I look around, and it's like there's people in, you know, all black with, you know, these goth people and, you know, long hair. It's just totally out of place for me. But anyway, the net of it was our professor came in there, and he asked everybody, he said, okay, you know, I never had this done either with the class sizes we had in accounting. But he said, okay, everybody go around, tell me your name, where you're from, and what your major is, kind of why you're taking the class. So he goes around, and all these people they have undergraduates in philosophy. And then he gets to me, and I'm like, well, I'm in the PPA program in accounting, and this class just happened to be a perfect fit into my schedule, and it satisfies my liberal arts requirement. And probably not the answer a professor wants to hear. But the net of it was, the professor asked me after the class, he's like, are you lost, or, what's going on? And I said, yeah, I told him about why I had to have the class, and I had to finish that requirement that semester. And I said, if I make an attempt, I say, is this class even feasible for me to pass? Because it's the only philosophy class I've ever had. And he said, if you make an effort, then I'll recognize that effort. Which, again, that was, you would have never heard that, I don't think, in the business school at UT. So I stayed in the class, and the net of it was about the majority of your grade, I think about 75% of your grade, was based off of a final that you had to take, and it was basically a long essay that you had to write, and he would pose a couple of questions about Immanuel Kant, and you had to write a long essay about it. And he did give us a little bit of insight into what the questions would be. So what do? I run home. The only people I can think of for tutoring, I run home to Mom and Lynn, and I was telling Mother and Lynn at dinner, I said, I don't know what I'm going to do because I've been in this class 2 months and I have no clue what they're talking about. I was like, it's totally foreign to me. And Lynn was like, and I'll be honest, up until this time, I knew what had attracted Lynn to Texas because we're known as the state of the BSers. And clearly that was a draw on Lynn, right? And up until this point, I thought, man, there's no way Lynn can know all of what he knows. And at dinner, he started talking about, like Mother said, he started talking about Immanuel Kant. And he spent the next 2 days tutoring me on what Immanuel Kant was, and we looked through his books and categorical imperatives and all this junk that, I would have never figured out on my own. And I can honestly say I was just amazed that a photographer would know this and also would take the time to help their stepson, learn it and do well at college. And so anyway, so I took all of Lynn's knowledge, which to this day I'm eternally grateful for, about Immanuel Kant. And I basically just tried to memorize what Lynn told me, and I took that and just wrote it on the essay. And I didn't do near as good of a job at it as I probably should have. But so at the end, we turn our essays in, and because there's a whopping 7 people, he grades them right at the end of class. And so he calls me into his office. I'm the last person to turn mine in, because I'm just trying to, after I've memorized everything Lynn said, then I was just like, and the trees are beautiful, and the sky. I thought maybe I can just wear the professor out, just by writing all this stuff. It sounds good. So the professor called me into his office, and he goes, I'm really surprised, because I have to be honest, it just didn't look like you were taking anything in. And I said, well, I took in more than you realize. And I said, yeah, and I started to feel good about myself, and I said, I really kind of think I learned quite a bit about Immanuel Kant. He goes, well, you learned something. And I ended up getting a B on the final and got a B in the class. That was the happiest B I ever got in my life. So, but I just share that because to me that kind of summed up Lynn. He was always a surprise in his knowledge and in his willingness to stop everything and help me. I didn't even have to ask him. He just did it. And, I don't even know what he was doing. I'm sure that, he was busy and had his own life to do, but he stopped it, made me a priority, helped me out, and I don't even know if I ever told him thanks for that. But, that's just who Lynn was. He was exceptionally smart and always willing to help and always had something to say. And, so those are my memories of Lynn. So I just wanted to share that story and tell him thanks for helping me get through the liberal arts school at the University of Texas.
I guess while I've got the courage to say what I would like to say, I'll do it now. And I would love if Lori Lynn and Christine East would come up here with me. My support crew here. My crew. Lori, Lynn, and I work with Lynn in the office. We have the office right next door to Lynn. I've been there, I've worked with Lynn almost 25 years. And Lori's now been there going on 6 or 7 years, 8 years? Forever. And Christine is also working with us there in the department, and just couldn't do anything without her there. She keeps us alive. So anyway, I had a few things that I wanted to say. All right. It's like, what do you write about somebody who's worked with for so long, so close? Okay, I'm going to keep it together, I swear. Okay, all right. Well, my relationship started with when I first met Lynn and Barbara at a convention, a photo convention in Houston. I drove down there with another faculty member, Paul Traves, years and years ago, about 28 years ago, and met Barbara and Lynn in the Norman. He was one of the Norman reps in one of the Norman booths. And at that moment, I knew that Lynn absolutely knew everybody in the business. He went on and on about different aspects of the people that he knew. And, he can remember people from 30 years back, 40 years back. He can remember their names. He can remember how he met them. He can even remember their kids' names. If there's people here tonight I've forgotten their names, I apologize. I am not one of those people that is good at remembering things like that. But his amazing memory for things in that regard are amazing. Just photographic memory, the ultimate photographic memory. His mind was an amazing recording device. Not only did he have, like I said, a photographic memory, but was able to store information in his head like a computer files and recall things in split seconds. Unlike the order that he kept his desk in, which were piles of paper about a foot high, which every semester we would go in there, straighten them up because they would cascade off his desk like a waterfall. But I referred to the stacks in his office as kind of like rings of a tree, like tree of life. Like you could pull anything out of that stack and you could tell what year that was from. It was all important to Lynn. He had a sign in his office that said, "Creative minds are seldom tidy," which was very much Lynn's office. And the sign was buried in there. People that really understood Lynn's brilliant mind would actually take the time to stop and listen. He did require some time to stop and listen, as we all kind of knew over the years. But he would recite details of how lenses and telescopes were constructed, down to the centimeter of glass of the curvature. And, who does that? Who knows that stuff besides Lynn? It just is, it's an impossible way to think that he was able to recall this stuff. He would give you step-by-step processing for C41 and E6 and how to do water bath process for sheet film to get the ultimate shadow details. He had processed film in 8 years and he could recall it step by step, just like a recipe. He could pull that out and could recite the entire formula. Some of the things that, this is probably the harder part for me, is some of the stuff that I'm going to miss with Lynn. When I first started there, I worked with another department head, Gilmore Williams, and he was the one that started the program from the Boston Model Project, and it was, a small photography program. I think we had, at the most, Leo Guetta is here. Leo and I worked in the department when I first started there. Wife Linda, I'm glad you're here. And it was, a fairly small program. There were maybe 100, 200 students in the program. There were about 10 faculty at the most. Now we're up to approximately 500 students. We've got over 30 faculty. We had, I think, 2 full-time at the time for full-time faculty. Now we're up to 5 or 6. And so the program has continued to grow. And a big part of that is when Lynn took over and really stepped in and, saw the potential for what that program could do. You know, Lynn is one of those people that never said it couldn't be done. He always stepped up and got it done. There was never a thought in his head that this was not going to work. When we first started working together, he looked at me, the department head had hired him, and said, you know, well, I'm going to groom you to be the next department head, and basically, here you go. It was the next semester. He handed him the whole department. And he looked at me and says, you're going to have to help me with this. And I said, I'm not so sure I can help with this. Well, we went around from room to room and would write out the course schedules on the marker board, which were blackboards back then. And he would put a note on there that says, do not erase. Because we'd have to go around and then write down all the schedules that we had written out to try and make it coordinate with all the faculty that were teaching with their outside of the school schedules. You know, and it just kind of was step by step, just how we kind of had to, you know, put a lot of those classes together and you know, decide on some of the specialty classes. Stephanie Hubringer-Ludlow is here. She taught one of the creative camera classes when we first started offering that, which is now the expressive photography. And, you know, yes, we teach professional photography for people to make a living in it, and that's our goal. But also not to forget that we keep the creativity in there. And Lynn always had that fine art, black and white bone in him to try to keep that essence within the department. I'm kind of freewheeling here. I'm not reading on the script at all. All right, back to page 2. Keeps me from not crying. Okay. Things that I'll miss about Lynn. I'll miss the coffee drips down the hallway. Like a breadcrumb trail to find Lynn. You could follow that coffee, and he always had his cup tipped. You know, it was always either a leak or I don't know what. He'd walk and it would splash out. It was just a mess. I'll miss his laughter echoing down the halls. He had that strong laugh that was just from the soul. He just loved a good time. One of the things I'm not so sure I'll miss, but is still part of it, is him cussing at his computer. The man had a salty talk to that computer. He was convinced every time there was a problem with his computer that it was definitely software or computer problem. It was not human error, or what we call in the department, carbon unit error. So he was always convinced it was some other issue. The other thing I'm going to miss a lot is the lunches. Lori and I would go with Lynn at the holidays, and that was one of our special times that the three of us would go and just cut loose and have fun and just eat. I'll miss every day, every single day he would come in our office, in my office, and say, who loves you, baby? And I'd say, you do, Lynn. He says, you're right. And, you know, to have somebody in your life that you work with, a coworker, a partner, a friend, to come in every single day to work and tell you they love you. You know, it's a rare thing. And he meant it. He wasn't just, you know, hey baby, how you doing? He genuinely cared that you knew that he loved you. And not just me, I mean everybody in the department. I mean, everybody, that's the thing these last couple of weeks that everybody's been remembering is Lynn's smile, how happy he always was all the time. You know, who does that but Lynn? I'm like, I come in, I've got a headache, I'm like, oh my God, you know, the world's coming to an end for me. And he's like, it's okay, baby, you'll get through it. Tomorrow will be better. So, you may not know, but he kept a coffee pot under his desk. That about once a semester he would kick over and spill all the coffee out of the coffee pot. And we'd hear all the cussing again. Sorry if anyone from OSHA is here that has been taken care of at this point. And speaking of coffee, he was my coffee angel. One of my students named him my coffee angel because I'm not good at mornings. I'm not really a morning person, and I had an early morning class. And he would come in my classroom while I was lecturing and put a cup of coffee right down in front of me and walk out. And that's all he did. He didn't say anything. That was all that he did. And I'm like, thank you, coffee angel. And Lynn and I taught a class in the summer. Lynn always believed in the students and always encouraged them. Always kind of had an encouraging word to kind of keep them motivated and keep them going. And, we were kind of a team of good cop, bad cop. I was always, when we taught the Codeville class in the summer, it's the capstone course that Doug Box was talking about, that our students go down before they graduate. And they've got to enter prints in a professional print competition. And Lynn and I would team teach it together. And he had his strengths in it, and I had my strengths in it. I think we worked pretty well together. And, someone had described it as good cop, bad cop. I was the one that said, you got to get the projects done. You've got deadlines. You got to get it finished. Redo the print. And they'd look at Lynn and go, Lynn, I can't do it all. And he's like, it's okay, baby. No, don't do that. So they would get comfort from him, and then they turn back to me, well, you still got to get to work. Get it done. Do it again. So I'm going to miss him being my good cop to my bad cop. So I still plan to be a bad cop, though. So those that have me next summer, sorry. One of the last things I'd like to say is, for those that thought that Lynn's teaching style was kind of old school, and I've often said that Lynn is kind of an analog person living in a digital world. Very much so. He was an analog guy living in a digital world and trying to do the best he could to keep up with that whole digital shift over, and did it quite well. I remind our students that it's important to understand where we come from as photographers, where our industry kind of started in order to kind of know where you want to go with it. To understand the history, and that's where Lynn kind of came in and kind of told people about how our photography business kind of started and why you fall in love with photography. The students don't need to process film or work with old equipment, but they need to listen to some of these pros, the people that have taken the time to learn the craft, to take the time to take that one roll of film and process it, look at it, to slow down and take the image correctly. We've come into this age of spray and pray that you've got an image. And, the photographers of the past thought through their exposures. They thought through their composition. And Lynn was always kind of reminding the students of that, don't just shoot until you get it right. Get it right and then shoot it. And so I think, that's some of the things that I think is important in Lynn's memory is to remember where he comes from and what he was teaching, is to listen and learn and soak it all in as much as you can. Lynn worked up to the last 3 weeks of his life. Lori and I and Christine were always worried. Yes, he was getting older, and all the what ifs. We knew Lynn wanted to stay here to the very last day, and I'm like, don't you dare die at your desk at work. I'll be so upset. You just can't do that. And he would have rather had it that way, I think, sometimes, And, he loved to teach. It was up to him, he definitely would have been there to the last day. It was his passion. If you read the blog page that Christine put together, and just how many people went on there and just talked about how much they loved Lynn. Comment after comment proves the impact that he's had on these students' lives. He loved his job and just being there at the college and being a professor. And it wasn't so much of teaching photography. That's really not what he was teaching in the big picture of things. It was really the way of which he teaches, the kindness towards students and towards how he felt about encouraging the students to move forward, whether it be photography or not. I think that that's really what he wants you to carry out of this, is whatever your passion is, to see it through and to be happy about it, go for what makes you happy, and really go for your dreams. And Lynn did, and he was happy at school all the way through. One of the last things that I'll say is, one of the last things that I will miss the most about Lynn is he would walk in our office or see us down the hall, and he would kiss his finger and just point it at us. That's all he needed to say.
Lynn would say during a long story, fade out and fade in on the next scene. And with that, I'm going to read a couple blog posts. There were so many good ones, but I just thought some summed it up really, really well. I'm not going to give anybody credit here, but if you feel like you missed out, I'm sorry. I just don't want to embarrass anybody. So Lynn, I remember having your history class the first semester I started the photography program. You made us watch those terribly dated 80s instructional videos that were unintentionally hysterical. You have such an immense knowledge of history on all things photography, but better yet, on every subject matter that encompasses life. Likewise, I am blessed to have had the privilege to work alongside you for these past few years. You always have a smile on your face and always had a great military story to tell me. Some that would easily make a red apple blush redder. Stay strong. Oh, Lynn, your history class was also the first course I took in the program when I was still trying to figure out if I was in the right place. You're so welcoming and intelligent and somehow happen to know all the jokes. Well, only the ones that matter. You always tell the best stories, and you have an answer for any question that I might ask, no matter how many times that I might ask it. Thank you for being my teacher and friend, and for showing us all what a real leader looks like. Lynn, it seems obvious that you touch everyone you meet with your warmth and heartfelt interest in helping anyone and everyone be a better photographer. Although you may never see the amazing photos taken long after students leave your side, know that they are wonderful because of you and your influence on all of us. I always enjoyed you retelling your life stories because I've always felt that those who spend any time with you might themselves become a future story. You are certainly one of mine. To the most interesting man behind the camera, thanks. Thanks for making me thirsty for life and the pursuit of a perfect photograph. Thanks for being so nice and professional to every stranger. Thanks for sharing your passion of photography to not only with me, but with everyone. Thanks for your devotion of craft, so few will experience because of life's little distractions, both the good ones and the bad ones. Thanks for the laughs. Thanks for the smiles. Thanks for the direction. But most of all, thanks for your time. It's a gift that will always be appreciated. Stay thirsty, my friend. Every time I see you, whether it's in your office or down the hallway, I love getting that bear hug from you and a kiss on your cheek. You've managed to brighten everyone's day by constantly being cheerful yourself. You always have time for everyone in the department, no matter how busy you are. And that actually reminds me, there were several themes that I just thought most of you will appreciate, but bear hugs, so many people appreciated those bear hugs and his quick kiss. And I know that most of you in here have been called child by him at one point or another. On a personal note, I took his macro class last fall, and I had just had a baby. It's about 3 months old, and I was always late for class. It was a 9 a.m. class. It was super hard to get it together, and I would come in with an excuse or just an explanation on the tip of my tongue, and I wouldn't have to say anything. He would just say, "We missed you, child. Glad to see you, child." And that meant a lot. It made it so much easier. I have one more. Lynn, you were the one I always made it a point to tell people about. Thank you for making that kind of impression. Your contributions to my education and that of countless others will no doubt be a fitting legacy to a life devoted to the work and love of photography. Thank you so much. You will live on forever in all of us. You will be missed and forever remembered.
The details of my story are sketchy, even though it's one of my favorites. Okay. Lynn was shy, apparently, when he was young. So he took was it public speaking class? And before his first big performance, going out on stage in front of, since the details are sketchy, 300 people, he asks advice from his uncle. And his uncle gave him advice that he said carried him through that stressful time and many others. And I have to admit, the wisdom has carried me through as well. His uncle said, "The
My name is Livingston Kumasi. Lynn has been a very good friend of mine, and as you all know, he's taught me lives. There are two things that I can remember that I learned from him. Anytime you saw me in the building 3000, you always tell me that. It's not a number of clothes that you have purchased, the number of cars or homes that you have bought, that you have left behind. The only thing that you leave behind is whose life have you touched. Each one of us here feel that sense of passion for him, we shall forever remember him. Second thing I learned from him is that he always told me that life is for living. And he lived a full life, even to the latest time that he spent on this earth. From him I learned that life itself is an eternal flow of the Spirit of God through us. Like an ocean which is constantly flowing, each one of us, as a spiritual being, is a wave in the ocean of life. Our spirit is eternal, death of the physical body. It's not a final thing that it appears to be. Because our body is only a temple for the living soul of God. Our body is only a sanctuary for the eternal Spirit of God. Our spirit is eternal. Death of this physical body is not a final thing that it appears to be. Barbara, Lynn's spirit is eternal. Death of this physical body is not a final thing that it appears to be.
Hi, I'm Marco Gutierrez. I'm a former photography student at ACC. And I guess like most ACC students, I first met Lynn in the history of photography class. Apparently a class that was so long that Lynn himself would sometimes fall asleep. I was at a point in my life where I wasn't sure where my career was going or even why I was in the photo program. So, excuse me. But I quickly learned while I was there that he took an interest in me, which I hadn't really grown up with a father figure before. So Lynn really played that role for me, and I'm sorry. I guess you could say he made an incredible difference in bringing me back to something that I was very passionate about, and certainly a part of my life that I had been ignoring. Especially when it came to cinematography, that I figured I was in the photo program, nobody here is going to know anything about cinema. And then he showed us a film about George Méliès, and I was like, man, this guy knows everything. And then he, of course, showed us people like Robert Capa, and I suddenly realized how photography and cinematography were so close together. But I think my best memory was, as I mentioned before, I had gone out of cinematography, thinking that this was the wrong choice for my life. Lynn found out about my history of video and pulled me into his office one day and said, I need you to remaster these videos. And of course, it's those really long, awful 80s videos. I cannot even tell you how many times I've watched those now. But he certainly made an extraordinary influence in my life. And of course, now I have a lot to be grateful for him too, because he was there when I won my trophy at the TPPA. I did not believe any of my photos were any good, but he continued to believe in what I could do, and it was because of his belief in me eventually, as some of you may know, Marina Morrison and I have partnered up to form a new company, and it's very much I have him to be grateful for. So, what I really want to say is thank you, Lynn, for.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Michael. I'm one of them figure from way back when. I don't look like her. But I've known them for about 15 something years, way back when we got wet down at the ACC athletic department, and we had an actual kitchen and a few other things that over there. My first memory of them when I came into the department, and I heard that laugh. I'm deaf, okay? I can hear that now. It don't look like you know what when you heard that laugh. Anyway, I had the fortune that I could have for I had an intermediate. Then get the macro and history of photography and portfolio development. The one thing that I would take from them is that I was really willing to give his time to anyone, anytime, any place, anywhere, and that was really well. He took the ultimate pleasure in teaching me how to pull a roll of film, even though I was spitting out every 5 minutes because I couldn't get it rolled in right. He took the time to show me lighting ratio. He took the time to sit down and talk to me whenever I got frustrated in his office. But mostly took the time to believe in me and everyone else. You know that thing that, well, I'm sure you take it from the Bible, but he demanded vigilantly taught me how to fish the polygraphic way. Thank you, Dad.
Hi, I'm Denny. What can I say about Lynn? He was just a wacky cat, man. His jokes, I mean, he was just one of the funnest teachers to have because he didn't make everything so serious. There were a lot of serious professors, like this one over here. And I don't know, he had such a wealth of knowledge and like little contraptions that he could teach you how to build to do things that I've never seen before. I've never seen since. And when I started writing about photography, he really encouraged me. And that's not something that a lot of people do. Write about it. Everybody wants to be the guys out there taking pictures. And Lynn wrote a lot of articles and wrote a lot of stuff about photography. And when I first started doing that, he encouraged me. It was, it really helped me get through. Now I've written 20 books and numerous articles and magazines and stuff, and I wouldn't have done that if it wasn't for Lynn. Just steering me down a different path, instead of telling me to be like a fashion photographer or what everybody else wants to be, like a cool guy. Lynn kind of let me go down the nerdy path, and for him, I just want to thank him for that. I know he's up here looking down and he's pretty stoked that everybody just, all the turnout. I guess that's pretty much all I have to say. Thanks, Lynn.
My name's Ernie Welch, and I had the privilege to be one of the first people in Austin to meet Lynn. I met Lynn the day that he came in to interview for his job at ACC. Gilmore Williams and I were there talking about something in the field, and Lynn walked in, and right off the bat, you could tell this was a person you're going to like to be around. To tell the rest of the story, I need to back up just a little bit and talk about Gilmore. Gilmore was headed the department chairman there, and he would call me in about once a month and say, Ernie, you need to take this class and this class to get your associate degree. And I would tell him, Gilmore, I've already got a graduate degree, I don't need an associate degree. A couple months later, he'd call me in again. We'd do the same thing. When Lynn took over, things changed a lot. I started auditing classes, and of course when you audit a class, you're the last one to register. And I would call Lynn up and say, what do you want me to register for, man? And Lynn would say, register for this class. And I would go register for that class. So those of you who were in a class that just barely made, you can thank Lynn's and my collusion. And then Lynn and I would meet once or twice a week. He mentored me for maybe 2 years, just one-on-one. He would give me an assignment, and then I'd come back a week or a couple days later and he'd give me another assignment. We were all very, very lucky to have known him. We're very privileged to have had him touch our lives. We all love him, and we all will miss him. Thank you.
Okay, so what we want to do now is we're going to conclude the speeches real quick. I would like to introduce his family because I know a lot of them do not live here in Austin. A lot of the students and other people haven't met them. So I'd like to do that. So his lovely daughter Becky is here and his son Lynn. So if y'all can come on up. And they have a brother Brett who's not with us today either. And then Alex and Tristan, if y'all can come up. Alex in the green shirt is Becky's son, and Tristan is Lynn's son. And then my three sons, if y'all come up. They're actually triplets. So, and then Mom, if you'll come up. And I'd personally like to thank Catherine. As the family was dealing with this and everything that's involved when someone passes, Catherine was just unbelievable. I know not only did she have to take over Lynn's classes at school and pick up that load immediately, but we just can't thank you enough for jumping in and all this coordination and everything that went on today is largely and partly to Catherine, and as a family, we really, really thank you very much. Just very, very sweet. And so, you know, this is Lynn's immediate family, and so as a family, we would like to thank y'all for coming today. We have the gardens until 1 o'clock. Please walk around and enjoy them a little bit. Maybe you can share stories with each other about Lynn. Please help yourself to the food